Imagine a killer so meticulous, so careful that even decades later, investigators are still baffled. 4 ruthless murderers terrorized their communities, leaving behind horrifying crime scenes and unanswered questions. And each one had a very distinct method, a chilling pattern of violence, and a haunting ability to evade capture. And despite years of investigation, shifting theories, and modern forensic advancements, the identities remain a mystery. Were these crimes the work of singular, calculating individuals, or is there something more sinister lurking beneath the surface? Today we explore 4 of the most perplexing unsolved serial murder cases. Killers who disappeared into the shadows, and perhaps are still out there, which is absolutely horrifying. And that's why I'm telling you today, because I want you to be safe, my little baby girl. I want you to be safe, okay? If you're a 40-year-old man watching this, I'm calling you baby girl as well. All right, so without further ado, let's unbuckle our seatbelts, go Mark 5 down the highway, slam on the brakes, and bust through this windshield into these 4 unsolved murder serial killer cases. Oakland County, Michigan, 1976. Tree-lined suburban streets stretched across affluent communities north of Detroit, where children played freely in the parks and rode bicycles without supervision. The area embodied middle-class American security, well-maintained homes with manicured lawns, good schools, and a pervasive sense of safety that would soon become shattered. During this period, before cellular phones and instant communication, children regularly ventured out until dusk, expected to return home when the streetlights came on. This environment of perceived safety created a hunting ground for a predator who would launch what became the largest manhunt in U.S. history, involving a task force that would process over 18,000 tips and interrogate more than 1,500 suspects. Between 1976 and 1977, a chilling series of events unfolded in Oakland County. The area, known for its affluent neighborhoods and family-friendly atmosphere, became the hunting ground for one of America's most methodical child killers. The nightmare began on February 15, 1976, when 12-year-old Mark Stebbins left the American Legion Hall in Ferndale, and what should have been a routine walk home turned into tragedy. 4 days later, Mark's body was discovered in a Southfield parking lot, carefully arranged on a pile of wood and dirt. The autopsy revealed premeditation. Mark had been strangled and sodomized with a foreign object. Rope marks indicated he had been bound, and lacerations suggested violent trauma. Less than a year later, on December 22, 1976, 12-year-old Jill Robinson left home after arguing with her mother. Her bicycle was found the next day, but Jill remained missing until December 26th, when her body was discovered alongside Interstate 75 in Troy. Disturbingly, there was evidence that she had been cared for in the days before her murder, still wearing her backpack and fully clothed when found. The pattern continued on January 2, 1977, when 10-year-old Christine Mihalik vanished after visiting a 7-Eleven store. Her ordeal lasted 19 days before her body was recovered on a rural road in Franklin Village. The killer had smothered Christine less than 24 hours before her body was placed, positioned carefully within view of nearby homes, a signature of the perpetrator's methodical approach. The final confirmed victim, 11-year-old Timothy King, disappeared on March 16, 1977, during a trip to a local pharmacy. Found 6 days later in a shallow ditch, Timothy had been sodomized and sexually assaulted, and most disturbingly, had been fed Kentucky Fried Chicken, his favorite meal, shortly before his death. Investigators linked the cases through consistent physical evidence, including golden carpet fibers and white animal hair found on the victim's clothing. Christopher Bush emerged as a compelling suspect. The son of a wealthy General Motors executive, Bush had been convicted as a pedophile and had connections to a child porn network. His timing was suspicious. Police questioned him shortly before Timothy King's abduction. Evidence linked him to a child exploitation ring, suggesting access to vulnerable children. In November 1978, Bush was found dead in an apparent suicide. The scene was suspicious with blood-stained ropes and a drawing resembling victim Mark Stebbins. The Oakland County Task Force disbanded days after Bush's death, raising questions about a possible cover-up. However, in 2012, DNA testing excluded Bush as a contributor to biological evidence. This setback occurred despite circumstantial evidence pointing to his involvement. Other suspects presented inconclusive leads. Ted Lamping, a Detroit auto worker involved in a pedophile ring, was a suspect in 2005, but refused a polygraph test. DNA evidence in 2012 pointed to convicted pedophile Ark Sloan, with hairs found on victims matching hair from his vehicle. James Vincent Gunnels, sexually assaulted by Christopher Bush, had a potential DNA match to a hair on Christine Mihelic, but the probability was too low for confirmation. Nearly 5 decades later, the case remains unsolved despite forensic advances. Timothy King's father, Barry, passed away in 2020 without knowing who killed his son. The systemic investigative failures suggest disturbing possibilities: a meticulous killer, protection of powerful individuals, or fundamental errors that can't be fixed. Whatever the truth, the Oakland County Child Killer case is a reminder that justice can be elusive, leaving families with enduring uncertainties. Let's move on. Glasgow, Scotland in the late 1960s was experiencing cultural change. The city's working-class population found escape at venues like the Borland Ballroom, a popular dance hall. Against this backdrop, a series of murders began on February 22, 1968, when 25-year-old Patricia Docker attended the ballroom. The young nurse and mother left alone and was found the next morning in a doorway near Langside Place, strangled and partially clothed, her belongings missing. Patricia Docker balanced work and motherhood. The 25-year-old auxiliary nurse managed night shifts while caring for her 4-year-old son, Sandy, during a separation from her husband. On that night, she told her parents she was visiting the Majestic Ballroom, but went to Borland, known for its over 25s nights, where attendees sometimes removed wedding rings. Jemima McDonald maintained a household as a single mother to 3 children. Described as clean and well cared for, Jemima ensured her children were looked after. Her murder in August 1969 fractured her family, and her children were separated into different care homes. Helen Puttock had recently returned to Glasgow with her husband and 2 sons. The night of her murder in October 1969 was a rare night out, while her husband stayed home with their children. The irony that Helen was killed near her home underscores the tragedy. All 3 women shared commonalities beyond Borland. Each was a mother seeking independence. The over 25s night offered married women autonomy in an era of limited freedom. Significantly, each was menstruating at the time of death. This venue, where married patrons sometimes removed their wedding rings, provided a hunting ground for a killer whose approach suggested religious motivations. Initial misdirection focusing on the Majestic Ballroom rather than Borland compromised evidence collection. This error proved significant as the Borland connection became apparent. Witnesses described the suspect as well-dressed and articulate, distinguishing him from a typical violent offender. His polite demeanor gained women's trust. This calculated approach indicated premeditation. This man was a hunter. The religious element emerged during Helen Puttock's taxi journey, where her sister, Jean Langford, heard the suspect quote scripture and condemn the Borland. Jean recalled he mentioned he didn't drink but prayed, suggesting a strict religious upbringing. Forensic examinations revealed ritualistic elements. The positioning of sanitary items near the victims' bodies suggested fixations connected to biblical notions of impurity. The consistent strangulation method pointed to a signature that evolved, potentially indicating the killer's growing confidence. As the ritualistic elements became clear, Glasgow police mobilized. What began as a standard murder investigation became Scotland's most extensive manhunt. It ultimately failed despite innovative tactics and compelling witness testimony. The investigation pioneered forensic techniques, most notably the first police photo fit of a suspect in a Scottish murder case. The manhunt was extensive, with undercover officers blending among Borland patrons. Jean Langford's account of the taxi ride provided detailed information, but over-reliance on her account potentially narrowed the investigation, causing detectives to dismiss leads that didn't precisely match her recollection. The undercover operation at Borland continued for months until late October 1969, when it was abruptly terminated due to complaints from proprietors about plummeting attendance. Decades later, in 1996, investigators exhumed the body of John Irvin McInnes for DNA testing, but it yielded inconclusive results and triggered media backlash. Allegations in 2022 suggested McInnes may have been protected due to family connections with a senior officer. Convicted murderer Peter Tobin was also suspected due to similarities in methods, but was eliminated because records confirmed he was in Glasgow during the murders. So, we're left with another unsolved serial murder case. In the mid-1990s, the Belgian city of Mons became the backdrop for gruesome discoveries. Women vanished, and their dismembered remains surfaced in garbage bags across rivers and roads with unsettling names. The precision of the cuts and eerie disposal sites pointed to a methodical and disturbed killer. Despite a dedicated task force, the investigation was plagued with mismanagement, lack of resources, and dead ends. As the body count grew, the mystery deepened. Was the killer a lone predator, a trained professional, or something sinister? Over the years, investigators pursued suspects with ties to similar crimes. But as time passed, justice slipped away, leaving a chilling question. Who was the Butcher of Mons, and why was he never caught? In January 1996, a pattern of disappearances began. Carolina Russo, 42, vanished after visiting her imprisoned son on January 4th. Her disappearance might have been another missing persons case, but 17 days later, fishermen found her severed pelvis in the Scheldt River in northern France. This marked the beginning of methodical dismemberments. 6 months later, Martine Bone, 43, disappeared on July 21st. Her torso was found in the Haine River. Disturbingly, her breasts had been removed, suggesting a sexual motivation. The precision of the cuts led authorities to consider medical training or experience with butchering. The pattern continued in December when Jacqueline Leeson, 33 and a mother of 4, went missing on the 22nd. Her remains, severed arms and legs, weren't found until March of the following year. The delay raised questions about the killer's storage capabilities. By March 1997, 21-year-old Natalie Godart became the 4th victim. Her torso was recovered from the Haine River. The killer's final known victim was Bonnie van Kellenberg, 37, and with schizophrenia, who disappeared from Frameries in the summer of 1997. Only her skull was recovered, suggesting changes in disposal methods or decomposition. Forensic analysis revealed details investigators initially missed. The preservation state of body parts differed, some fresh, others refrigerated, indicating storage. This suggested access to refrigeration and planning. Most chilling was the killer's psychological signature in the selection of disposal sites. Locations with macabre names became favored: Rue des Rivrottes, Dump Street, Chemin de la Queue du Diable, Path of Worry, and rivers with unsettling names. This deliberate selection of symbolically charged locations suggested a perpetrator incorporating psychological elements. Yet the Belgian judicial system's response was insufficient. Despite a specialized unit, authorities gradually abandoned the pursuit of the butcher. In the aftermath, Belgian authorities formed the Corpus Unit. This represented the nation's most concentrated effort to identify the killer. However, from its inception, the unit faced constraints. Despite the brutality and sophistication, officials classified the case as local, failing to allocate adequate resources. The systemic dismantling became evident as years passed without an arrest. By 2007, the unit had shrunk to only 4 investigators. This reduction occurred even as the unit examined nearly 1,000 complaints over 13 years, demonstrating administrative indifference. The lack of modern forensic techniques at the time further hampered investigators. The investigation developed international dimensions. In 2007, Montenegrin authorities arrested Malej Toja, a compelling suspect. Toja's history included a similar murder in New York in 1990, where Mary Beale was dismembered and placed in garbage bags. Evidence against Toja included his presence in Belgium, his connection to the New York victim, and bloodstains in his apartment. Yet investigators never secured conclusive proof linking him to the Belgian killings. Toja's death in a Montenegrin prison in 2012 ended any chance of a confession or further DNA comparisons. Other suspects emerged. Jacques Antoine, a French doctor, was a person of interest, but accusations from his son were undermined by inconsistencies. British citizen John Sweeney, convicted of dismemberment murders, was a plausible suspect, but no definitive connection was established. The Butcher of Mons case exposed systemic failures in Belgian law enforcement. The killer's planning skills and possible medical training allowed him to evade capture. The case underscores the need for cooperation and resources in investigations. Though officially unsolved, its legacy has influenced reforms. Let's move on to our last unsolved serial killer murder case. San Francisco's foggy beaches and parks became the hunting ground for this methodical predator. Ocean Beach served as the backdrop for the Doodler's first confirmed murder on January 27, 1974. The body of Gerard Earl Kavanaugh was discovered there, bearing multiple stab wounds. This marked the beginning of a pattern that would terrorize the city's gay community for 18 months, leaving bodies scattered across various locations. The pattern linking these homicides emerged gradually. What began as seemingly unrelated crimes soon revealed a methodical perpetrator with consistent targets and methods. Kavanaugh's defensive wounds indicated a violent struggle, the numerous stab wounds demonstrating aggression. Investigators initially treated this as an isolated incident. 5 months later, the killer struck again. Joseph Stevens was discovered near Spreckles Lake with stab wounds. His abandoned car suggested he willingly accompanied his killer, likely anticipating a sexual encounter. As a performer, Stevens was a visible target within the gay community. The brutality escalated with the third victim, Klaus Christmann, 12 days later. His body was found at Ocean Beach with severe slashes to his throat, appearing to be an attempt at decapitation. Nearly a year passed before Frederick Kappen became the fourth victim. He received numerous stab wounds that pierced vital organs. Evidence at Ocean Beach revealed his body had been dragged, suggesting the killer was becoming more methodical. The final confirmed kill was Harold Goldberg, discovered in an advanced state of decomposition on June 4, 1975, at Lincoln Park. His body was found with his underwear removed and pants unzipped, confirming the sexual dimension of these crimes. Police were unsure if these murders were connected. Behind the gruesome murders lay a distinctive method. The Doodler's artistic talent transformed bar encounters into deadly traps. His approach demonstrated calculated precision. The Doodler prowled San Francisco's gay scene, targeting establishments in various districts. Venues became his hunting grounds, where he used his signature strategy. Rather than intimidation, he disarmed victims through his artistic abilities, sketching portraits as a non-threatening introduction. One survivor recounted meeting the killer at a diner, where he drew animals on a napkin. This approach allowed him to establish trust and lure victims to secluded locations, often near water. These areas were known for gay hookups in the 1970s, providing privacy for encounters and murder. The violence indicated rage. The bodies were found outdoors near water. The killer stripped victims of identification, making it harder to connect cases. 3 individuals survived encounters, providing details. A European diplomat escaped with stab wounds. Another survivor, an entertainer, fled when a knife fell from the attacker's coat. The third survivor left San Francisco and refused to cooperate. The psychological profile suggested a perpetrator struggling with his identity. The violence against gay men indicated internalized homophobia. Witness descriptions depicted a young black man with artistic skill and violent tendencies. The psychological assessment took on a disturbing dimension in late 1975. A psychiatrist contacted police about a patient who confessed to the Ocean Beach murders. This brought investigators close to solving the case, yet the Doodler slipped away due to circumstances reflecting 1970s America. The investigation was led by Ora Guilford and Earl Sanders, African-American homicide inspectors. They constructed a detailed case file with a police sketch and a list of suspects. When the psychiatrist came forward, investigators believed they had their perpetrator. The suspect acknowledged identity struggles, but denied the murders. Without physical evidence, the case hinged on survivor testimony. The socio-political climate of the 1970s created a barrier to justice. Homosexuality was still stigmatized. Gay men faced losing jobs, housing, and social standing if outed. Survivors feared testifying. Relations between law enforcement and the LGBTQ+ community were strained. Police raids on gay establishments were common, fostering distrust. Many gay men saw police as persecutors, making cooperation difficult. Harvey Milk acknowledged the survivors' position, stating he understood the pressure society put on them. Societal homophobia effectively granted the Doodler immunity. Despite advances, these cases remain hauntingly unsolved. The Oakland County Child Killer, Bible John, the Butcher of Mons, and the Doodler left behind not just victims, but an enduring unease. Their identities remain obscured. While theories abound, justice has never been fully realized. As cold cases are revisited with new technology, one question remains: could these killers still be alive, hidden in plain sight? I want you to be safe. These monsters committed terrible crimes. I hope they face justice. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Goodbye.